Amazing questions on the Instagram account today. Number one question was, I want to take good care of my neck, but when I try to do the neck exercises in FRC, my neck hurts. So, what do you do if your cervical cars hurt? So, if you're new to this crew and you've never done cervical cars before, this is controlled articular rotations of your neck. In this human neck, there are 7 cervical bones, and all of them have a capacity to flex and extend and then to flex laterally and also to rotate. So when we do our cervical cars, we're basically taking an assessment of how well does a neck do what a neck should do. Now I'll take my earrings off so we don't get any clicking and clacking. But when you think about it, you'll need as much cervical mobility as you could possibly use to do whatever it is you do daily in your life. If you personally are someone who impersonates an owl, you may need more range of motion than someone who just wants to be able to back up out of the driveway and see what's behind them. So let's start with the movement and break it down. The first activity, the cervical flexion, is to first draw your chin towards your chest. This may be uncomfortable for a lot of us because you've been taught like not to make it look like you have a double chin, but who really cares? I'd rather have you have a neck that works than worry that you have a double chin for 5 seconds. Think about opening at the first joint here at the base of your skull and slowly come down from there, imagining that you are opening the backside of every single joint in the cervical spine just to assess, like, does your neck go forward like it should? With the spine, when we're trying to open up more range of motion, we go against some of the FRC principles, one of which being we start with rotation, because in the spine, because of the nature of your spine and the way that the vertebrae are built, the back of the spine kind of hook into each other. So the first range of motion we actually open up is flexion and extension. That would be forward for the neck and backward. So as you do that, we're always looking for sensations. Now, if I'm in flexion, I'm looking to create a sensation on the open side of the cervical spine. This is the back side, the opening side, and this would be the closing side. So you can kind of see that I'm closing down the front side of the joint. If you ever have pain when we're doing cars on the closing side of the angle, that's a problem and that's a stop sign. Now, you may find out that it's something if you work with a practitioner that you don't need to worry about the closing angle for different reasons, but that you would do under the care of a practitioner who knows what they're doing and knows your body. Once we get into the spinal flexion, the next movement that we make would be to begin adding rotation. And I want you, as you do your cervical cars, to think about rotating as if there were 7 rings on a dowel. Think about rotating the top and then the second, and then add the third and bring in the fourth all the way to the bottom. So from that flexed spine position, drag your chin along your collarbones, rotating C1, C2, bring in C3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And this is where you have to start to pay attention to that closing angle joint pain. For some folks, as you rotate to the side, you'll notice on the side that's closing, not the open side where we want to create stretching to the tissues, but you'll notice that you get some closing angle joint pain. If that's you, we don't go into closing angle joint pain, we go around closing angle joint pain. So if for you in full flexion and the chest stays still, to get all the way over to the side, it hurts. Don't go that far before moving into the next movement, right, which would be to drop ear towards the heel. Again, moving just the cervical spine. For a lot of folks, you can get pinchy in this backhand corner. Same thing. Come off of what hurts and go around it. Imagine you were driving down the road and there was a tree planted in the middle of the road. Would you bang your car into the tree or would you drive around it? Now, the key to it is this. All of the tissues in your body are interconnected. So even if you can't go into this angle right here, by continuing to expand your range of motion, right? Maybe you can't get to the edge of where your potential is, but we'll creep towards it closer and closer every time. Think about it this way. When 2 bones articulate or they come together, they are supposed to be able to move, to flex and to extend without ever touching each other. And they do that because across the joint, your connective tissue in your joint capsule is elastic, like a rubber band. Well, what if this side wasn't elastic and it couldn't spread the top side of that joint apart? If your bones were stuck at this far apart, as you go to flex, you're going to end up bringing the opposite side of the joint together. So as we go into this movement, if this is a problem for you, this is the side of the joint that's problematic. So let's go as far as you can and work your way into that. Now, if you have a problem with your cervical cars, then think about hitting 3 to 5 sets of them. 3 to 5 times a day. A simple thing to do is to just, have you ever heard of layering habits? So, something that you already have as a habit to do, which is probably brushing your teeth. Start by brushing your teeth, and either as you do it or after, hit yourself some cervical cars. Maybe you make tea or coffee in the morning. That's another great place to layer it in. Do you eat lunch? Do you have a commute, right? Before you back your car out of your spot, add those cervical cars in. Then, when you really realize where those stickiest spots are, that's when you come to us and you ask us, so now what do I do? I just can't get into this back right corner of my cervical cars. And we can help you learning how to apply some force. The one thing I want to caution you about is if you're starting to work on cervical car stuff, remember that the bones in your neck are the smallest and the most fragile. You don't need to treat them like babies, but the muscles are the same too. So the type of force that you would apply, like if you were doing hip internal and external rotation, is not the type of force you'd apply when you're working with your neck. It's a very, very different situation. And in most cases, would actually do Pale's contractions over rails contractions just until you open up a little more space. Questions about your cervical cars, if they're challenging, post them down below and I'll get back to you with some answers.